Catalonia's government remains defiant. It has a mandate for independence. But its push for self-determination could lead to Spain taking control. Spain's central government has announced it's triggering Article 155 of the Constitution, which allows it to impose direct rule on any of the country's autonomous regions in the event of a crisis. The unprecedented move would strip Catalan President Carles Puigdemont of all of his powers and could force snap elections in the region. There are also reports that Spain is looking at taking control of Catalonia's police force and its public broadcaster.
Aplicamos el artículo 155 porque ningún gobierno, insisto, ningún gobierno de ningún país democrático puede aceptar que se ignore la ley, que se viole la ley, que se cambie la ley.
Catalonia's government has described this as a de facto coup d'etat and the worst attack on the region since the rule of fascist dictator Franco. He revoked Catalan autonomy and banned the Catalan language and culture.
The Catalan institutions and the people of Catalonia cannot accept this attack. The humiliation sought by the Spanish government as the guardian of all Catalan public life, from the government to the public media, is incompatible with a democratic attitude and is situated outside the rule of law.
Catalan authorities are meeting on Thursday to work out their official response, but they've already warned they won't be following orders. This has raised fears that the situation could escalate and could lead to a repeat of the violent confrontations between Catalans and police during October 1st's independence referendum. More than 800 people were injured as police tried to stop people voting. Catalonia's government has appealed to the European Union to prevent Spain from imposing direct rule and removing Catalonia's leaders.
What's being done with Catalonia is directly an attack on democracy that opens the door to other abuses of the same kind anywhere, not just in Catalonia.
But the EU has said this is a domestic matter for Spain to sort out on its own, and the Spanish government looks unlikely to back down.
They are there because of the Constitution, and it is by the application of this Constitution that these men will no longer be presidents of the Generalitat. They may be living in some other reality, but the political and legal reality is that they will be removed.
Is Catalonia's dream of independence over? Or is this a fight that is just beginning? Yvette McCullough, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me from Barcelona is Albert Royo. He's the Secretary General of the Public Diplomacy Council of Catalonia. Also from Barcelona is Carlos Silva. He's on the Executive Council of the Spanish political party Union, Progress and Democracy. Gentlemen, thank you to the both of you for joining us here on The Newsmakers. It's important to note that you're both Catalans, but you stand on different sides of the issue. So let's dive in. Albert Royo, let's start with you. Talk about Article 155. Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy said it was to re-establish legality. The Catalan Parliament will be convening on Thursday and Friday to discuss its response to this. Give me a sneak peek as to what we can expect.
Well, I would say this is the most serious attack against Catalonia's self-rule since democracy was restored in the late 70s of last century. And I think it's quite unrealistic to think that people here in Catalonia will just accept the direct rule from Madrid, as by doing that we are somehow destroying one of the main agreements of the Spanish transition to democracy. We have to see what the Spanish Senate does on Thursday and Friday, but if they confirm the suspension of the Catalan home rule, I think there's going to be a reaction here in Catalonia because there is no other alternative.
What's going to be that reaction?
Well, you may know that after the referendum, which took place on October the 1st, it was the second time that the majority of Catalans supported independence, so there was a mandate for independence. On October the 10th, the president of Catalonia decided to proclaim independence, but suspended the effects of this declaration. Now, it seems that if it's confirmed that the Spanish government is suspending the Catalan self-rule, then the Catalan government, the Catalan parliament, may proceed to lift the suspension of these effects.
Okay, let's get Carlos Silva in here. Considering the current atmosphere in your country, do you think Madrid had any other option but to invoke Article 155?
Of course, it didn't, because it wasn't the national government that triggered this whole situation, but it was the pro-independence movement that triggered it all with the celebration of the legal referendum and the breaking of all the laws, even of the Catalan statute for autonomy. So I think that that was the only way out for a legal and democracy, as the Spanish democracy is.
Carlos, help me understand, what does Article 155 mean? How does it work? What's it going to entail?
Well, it's a proposal from the government to the Senate that they have to pass at the Senate by assuming or just taking the reins of some different or an important part of the administration. It's not a suspension of the whole autonomy, but it's a wide taking control of different aspects that they must be brought back to the role of law in Catalonia.
Albert Royo, Carlos says it's not a complete suspension of the autonomy. Do you agree?
I don't agree with this view. This is a clear suspension of Catalonia's self-rule. The Catalan parliament will be blocked to pass the laws that it considers necessary in the future. And furthermore, the Spanish government is going beyond what is set up in the Spanish constitution by deciding to replace the Catalan government, a government which has democratic legitimacy, which is supported by an absolute majority of the Catalan parliament, and it's going to replace it by Spanish ministers, members of the Spanish People's Party, a party which is the smallest party in the Catalan parliament. They just have 8% of the votes here in Catalonia. So by doing that, they are staging a real coup d'etat against democracy here in Catalonia.
So this is a coup d'etat, according to you?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a coup d'etat because, let me develop a little bit this. There is a clear majority here which has resulted in this government. And what Mr. Mariano Rajoy seems to do is that, as he doesn't like this majority, he wants to shift it. He wants to replace this majority by using some legal tools which are not foreseen in the Spanish constitution. He is not respecting the Spanish constitution himself, and he's attacking the Catalans for not respecting the Spanish constitution, but Mr. Rajoy is not respecting it clearly when he is going beyond what is established in the constitution and what is established in this Article 155.
Carlos Silva, an awfully strong accusation by Albert Royo. Is this a coup d'etat? How do you feel about these words coming from a fellow Catalan, that it's a coup d'etat?
Well, I don't agree at all, because it's a whole lie, because it's talking all the time about majorities. If we talk about majorities, all the pro-independence parties that gathered under the umbrella of the Together for Yes didn't won the elections, and they didn't get half of the seats at the Catalan parliament. And he talks all the time in the name of Catalan people, but pro-independence in Catalonia means less than half of the voters. And so they take in the voice of all the Catalans, but most Catalans don't think like Albert Royal. In fact, Albert Royal is one of the highest representatives of that kind of ministry of propaganda that the pro-independence parties called the structures of state that are devoted to spread all the lies of nationalists all over the world.
Albert, you're shaking your head, but I'm going to get to you. Let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk about where we stand now and evaluating the last month. It's been 1 month since the referendum. Looking at where things stand currently, Albert, did you expect it to be at this point right now, or is this the outcome that you wanted?
Well, listen, we all expected to see Madrid offering dialogue. That was what Mr. Puigdemont, President Puigdemont, offered 2 weeks ago when he decided to suspend the effects of this Declaration of Independence, to offer dialogue with no conditions. And the answer to this frank offer of dialogue has been the suspension of the Catalan self-rule and the decision to put in jail the main representative, the main leaders of the two pro-independence organizations, civil organizations. So this is not a way to de-escalate tensions here. Well, and from the Catalan side, we were expecting Mr. Rajoy and the Spanish institutions to contribute in the de-escalation of tension here, and they're doing quite the opposite.
Carlos Silva, you said earlier that the Spanish government had no other option but to invoke Article 155. Looking at the events since October the 1st, evaluate Madrid's performance. Do you think that anything could have been done differently?
Well, it could have, the government could have acted before. In fact, there was a clear declaration or the clear rebellion of the pro-independence forces when they broke all the rules, all the existing rules in Catalonia, even well, not just the constitution, but even the Catalan statute, when they passed the referendum law and the transitority law at the beginning of September, in early September. I think that there was the moment when the national government should have acted by applying then Article 155, 155, and avoiding the celebration of the illegal referendum. I think that they gave time to the pro-independence forces to organize and to play all the game of confusion and lies.
Albert Royo, you don't agree? I see you shaking your head again.
No, I don't agree. Listen, there are several precedents which show the correct way to tackle these territorial conflicts. We don't need to invent the wheel again. We've seen how the UK has tackled the situation in Scotland. We've seen what Canada did with Quebec. We've seen what Denmark has done with the Faroe Islands or with Iceland or with Greenland. Just to let people express themselves. First of all, you need to know whether there is a majority supporting independence or not in this territory. And the best way to do this is not to compare demonstrations on the streets, but to let people vote in a secret and legal vote. And we expected that being part of a true democracy, as we are always being told that Spain is, we would manage to find a way to let people express themselves through a vote, let's say in a civilized manner, as happened in Britain or in Canada or in Denmark. And we are seeing quite the opposite, just negative messages being sent out to Catalonia, threats, boycotts, or the paramilitary police being sent in to Catalonia to hit innocent people who were just lining up to cast their votes. So I think that is unacceptable for a true democracy.
Okay, Mr. Royo, let me ask you this. You talked about the majority of the people wanting independence. When you look at the pulse of the city that you're both connecting to us from, it's no secret that Catalonia has desired independence for decades. So explain to me why there was such a low voter turnout, 43% on the referendum of October the 1st.
I'm not sure whether I got your question, but if it comes to how many people are supporting the idea of independence, the best way, clearly, to get to know that is through a vote. Instead of having to take a look to opinion polls, let's people vote, and then let's count and let's negotiate on that basis. And that has been impossible. Well, the only figures that we have out of a legal election in Spanish terms, which was the regional election here in Catalonia, which took place in September 2015, it resulted in an absolute majority supporting independence. There is an absolute majority already in the Catalan parliament supporting independence. There is even a larger majority supporting the right to self-determination. 80% of Catalans think that the referendum is the proper way to tackle and fix this situation. And when it comes to votes, because sometimes we are being replied by the unionist side, well, listen, but you did not achieve 50% of the votes. Well, the pro-independence list achieved 48% of the votes, and the unionist list achieved 39% of the votes. In between, there were 13 percentage points of people who voted for options with no clear stance on independence and which were very reluctant to participate in this plebiscitary interpretation of the vote. So we have just an absolute majority in parliament, 48% of voters supporting pro-independence list, 39% supporting unionist list. That's the figures that we have nowadays. If Madrid or somebody does not agree with this, the proper way to confirm this, and that was the idea of the Catalan government, to confirm this majority, is to organize a referendum. That was the idea of the government of Catalonia. There was a majority, but they wanted to confirm this majority through a single issue vote, and this is a referendum. This is how it has been done in other democratic systems. If they are blocking this possibility, or if, as you have seen, they try to directly attack people who wanted to vote, then the only figure we have is the figure of this parliamentary election of 2015.
Silva, let me ask you, Madrid is hoping for regional elections by invoking Article 155 within 6 months. What does Madrid expect from this election? Is it going to be any solution?
Yes, well, I want to say something about what Albert said, and I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think that there are a few facts that must be clear. The referendum was illegal, so we don't know how many people voted, because there wasn't an election board, so we don't know how many people voted. It was a fake referendum. And another fact is that they have a minority in the of seats at the parliament, and they have co-leagued with an anti-system party whose motto is the worse the better. So they will do anything to destroy our system and our democracy. I don't think that the Catalan pro-independence movement or the pro-independence parties can pretend or can assume that they can bring all the Catalan society to this stage we're living now, this situation we're living now of a broken society and a dead end. And as for your question, sorry, I forgot.
Gentlemen, I just want you to hold on for just 1 second. José Luis Zapatero, Spain's former prime minister, spoke to my colleague Imran Garda here on TRT World last week. Here's what he had to say. Let's listen in and we'll pick up the conversation from there.
The territorial integrity of the state is a basic principle of our Constitution and of Europe. Therefore, it lacks viability. In addition to lacking legal viability, I think it is better to live together, to be together, and also that living together happens through a process of getting closer to each other again. Probably we will have to reform the Constitution, some legal reforms, so that the worries and demands of Catalonia are taken into account. However, Spain must continue to be united. Spain will continue to be united with Catalonia, and I hope for a new situation regarding the relationship of Catalonia within Spain.
Albert Royo, let's start with you. Final thoughts. Zapatero says we need to live together to understand each other, but you've been living next to each other for centuries. Don't you feel close?
We've been part of the, let's say, unitary Spain since the 18th century. We were a sovereign country for 7 centuries. We were defeated in a war 3 centuries ago. Then our institutions were banned, our language was persecuted for 3 centuries. But it's true that since the late 70s of last century, there is democracy. Something which I have to underline that has been more the exception than the rule in recent times in Spain. For these 40 years, we've been trying to help Spain to become a modern country in social, economic, and political terms, and also to help Spain to evolve towards, let's say, federal-style country, which can be proud of its own diversity, linguistic and national diversity. But after 40 years, and especially after the Constitutional Court diminished and annulled the basic parts of our self-rule 7 years ago, we've seen that that is not possible.
Okay.
Simply because we are a structural minority. In Spain, we are 50% of the population. If you want to reform the Constitution, you need 2/3 snap elections, 2/3 of the chambers against,
okay,
and a Spain-wide referendum.
Albert, Albert, thank you very much. Carlos, I have to give you the last word very quickly. Where do we go from here? Where does Spain go from here? And talk to us very briefly about some of the constitutional reforms that are needed.
All right. Well, I think that the national government should take advantage of this situation just to bring back Catalonia to the rule of law and to stop this kind of madness that Puigdemont and his party has triggered in Catalonia. I think it is an opportunity. It's a serious situation, and it's going to take hard work and a lot of time as well, because it's a broken society. But I think that we can do what we can get out of it and get out of all these madness that the people from the parties to which Albert Royo belongs have brought to us.
Albert Royo, thank you very much for joining us. Same to you, Carlos Silva, on this very important issue. Certainly a lot needs to be done, but perhaps starting with dialogue. Thank you to the both of you.